with Bishop Dale C. Bronner.
And celebrate him in all that he's doing in you, for you, to you. Because after he finishes with you, God is going to use you to be a blessing to somebody around you. He really honestly will. He really honestly will. Well, if you will, turn your attention this evening to 1 Kings chapter 13. 1 Kings chapter 13. As I am teaching in a series entitled Changing Your Trajectory. Changing Your Trajectory. This is about how to make the rest of your life better, because we're living in such a changing world. 1 Kings chapter 13. It's a very interesting story here. And we'll read it and then we'll come back and see if we can unpack it a little bit. Some of you may be familiar with it, but it's the story of a message from a man of God that he delivered and what happened in his life as a result of that. 1 Kings chapter 13, beginning with verse 1. And behold, a man of God went from Judah to Bethel by the word of the Lord, and Jeroboam stood by the altar to burn incense. And then he cried out against the altar by the word of the Lord and said, O altar, altar, thus says the Lord, behold, a child, Josiah by name, shall be born to the house of David. And on you he shall sacrifice the priests of the high places who burn incense on you, and men's bones shall be burned on you. And he gave a sign the same day, saying, this is the sign which the Lord hath spoken. Surely the altar shall split apart, and the ashes on it shall be poured out. And so it came to pass that when King Jeroboam heard the sayings of the man of God, who cried out against the altar in Bethel, that he stretched out his hand from the altar, saying, arrest him. And then his hand, which he stretched out toward him, withered, so that he could not pull it back to himself. The altar also was split apart, and the ashes poured out from the altar, according to the sign which the man of God had given by the word of the Lord. And then the king answered and said to the man of God, please entreat the faith of the Lord your God, and pray for me, that my hand may be restored to me. And so the man of God entreated the Lord, and the king's hand was restored to him and became as before. And then the king said to the man of God, come home with me and refresh yourself, and I'll give you a reward. But the man of God said to the king, if you were to give me half your house, I would not go in with you, nor would I eat bread nor drink water in this place. For so it was commanded me by the word of the Lord, saying, you shall not eat bread nor drink water, nor return by the way you came. And so he went another way and did not return by the way he came to Bethel. Now, what is all of that to say? It is to say that what brought you to where you are will not take you to where you want to go. That there are some things that you have to change. There are some things that you have to change. God had specifically not given him a suggestion, but a commandment, saying, when you go there, eat no bread, drink no water, and do not return the same way that you came. That I've sent you to do something, but I don't want you to go back the same way. It is a shame when you hear truth and turn around and go back the same way you came. It's amazing how you can tell people the truth, give them the truth, and they behold the truth and they walk away, and it is as though they have not even heard the truth. They go back the same way because they're such creatures of habit. And there are certain things that are detriment when you keep living as though things are the same, when circumstances in the world in which we live, they happen to be changing all the time. You know the definition for insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different outcome. So we've talked about how as things are changing in our world, the thing that really interests us the most is this thing called transition. Say transition. Remember, transition is the emotional, relational, financial, and psychological process of change. That's what transition is. That thing that's harder than change itself is the transition. It is the emotional, the relational, the financial, and the psychological process of change. You see, stress comes into your life either when there is too much change or when there's too little change. But people are most receptive to God when they're under stress or when they are in transition. Remember that transitions are external, and change, on the other hand, transitions are internal, and change is an external event. Death, job loss, bankruptcy, divorce, that'll change your life big time. Marriage, that can change it big times. The birth of a child, that'll change it big time. Those things are changes. But the thing that gets us, if the biggest part of having children was just the event in the hospital of actually giving birth, see, that's not it. It's after you give birth and you're being awakened every night. Or when you go through transition, when you're dealing with teenagers, and they're like they have lost their minds. They are sophomores. Say sophomores. That sophomores, it literally means wise fool. When they know a little of something and a whole lot of nothing, but they think that they know everything and their parents are stupid. That's when those children are in the sophomoric years. See, that's not change, that's transition. They're going through those transitional years of trying to find who they are and to find their own voice, their own independence, but yet they're not there yet. And so they're making a transition between being a dependent child to becoming an independent adult. And so they go through transition. It's a very stressful time for a lot of parents because their teen children act as though they have lost their mind, and they think that they're grown and that they know more than their mama and their daddy. So they want to act like grown folks, but they don't want to have grown folks' responsibility. And so they are wise in some areas, street-wise, they're wise, they know some things, but there's a whole lot of other stuff they know, and mom and daddy have already been there. They're trying to tell you, listen, listen, the bridge is out, you go speeding down there, I know you think you can jump across it. And so as we grow through life, and you don't just go through life, through life. Learn to grow through whatever it is that you go through. Learn to grow through it. You have to be open and flexible to change. Be open and flexible to change. When you are rigid and take the attitude, I shall not be moved. No, you will be left behind. And sometimes when a storm comes and when you say, I will not be moved, sometimes you will literally be broken. Mighty oak tree will break amid a storm. But a palm tree in its flexibility will bend to the ground, and when the storm has passed, it'll rise back up again, and it's able to survive the storm because of its flexibility when contrary winds are blowing. So things will not always go the way that you plan for them to go. Has anybody ever discovered that? You make a nice plan. Very, very rarely do things go exactly the way that you planned them. Very, very rarely do they go exactly the way that you planned them. We have a monkey wrench thrown into the program. Things that we did not see coming. You know, people get married and they say, you'll get married and so you'll live happily ever after. You know, in between the marriage and the happily ever after, there come a whole transitional issues. Now, you know, my wife and I, we have never, ever had an argument. But we have had a vigorous exchange of dissenting ideas. No, we have such a wonderful, we go for such a long period of time and don't even have an incident any kind of way. I feel so blessed. It's just surreal to me. I have to pinch myself. I'm so blessed. My wife doesn't even like to shop. Oh, I feel all of the haterade coming from all the other men now. I am such a blessed. I am so blessed. I'm so blessed, and I just thank God. I thank God that He directed my steps. I thank God that I chose well, that I followed the leading of the Lord, and I'm really, really convinced. I was thinking about. I'm really honestly convinced. I didn't just marry a wife. I married, honestly, a soulmate. I realized that our connection, that we married a soulmate. We're eternally connected. I really honestly believe that. You know what the Bible says in Proverbs chapter 16, verse 9? A man's heart plans his way, but the Lord directs his steps. That is to say, sometimes you can be intending to go this way, and God will so manipulate circumstances in your life. Anybody ever have God to change your plans, and you look back and you thank God that he didn't let you go that way? I mean, you didn't realize what was going on and what was happening and why it was happening this particular way, but God in control. God was in control. A man's heart plans his way, but the Lord directs his steps. Now, sexist to men, please, ladies, include yourself in that. Plans her way, directs her steps. Please let the Lord direct them. Now, I know some strong-willed women that have pushed their own way only to come to a place of regret. Now, of course, men have come to places of regret too. So that's not a male or female thing. That's a human thing. I put it this way: God won't make you do right, but he sure will make you done right. He will make you wish that you had followed him, that you had trusted him, that you had depended upon him. He won't make you do right, but God will certainly make you wish you had done right. And so I want you to think of change as change happens to you. Don't think of change as being like an adventurer just traveling across the landscape, but think of it being like a captain of a sailboat navigating all of the changing of the uncharted waters of a seascape. And when you're on the water, you know that the water is constantly moving, shifting. That's the kind of society in which we live today. We're not just traveling across terrain. We are on a seascape. The seascape is changing. So much around us is changing. The foundations of what we knew to be foundational are changing. I mean, when Wall Street has trouble, when they have to be bailed out. Now, you know, when large corporate America catches a cold, you have double pneumonia. I mean, you know how that works. So our whole nations are just shaking us. They're shaking us from every realm of life. And so I want you to think of yourself navigating change by being like on a life raft. And you're on water that is shifting and moving. That's the kind of environment in which we live today. And we are experiencing rapid change. If you don't believe me that we are experiencing rapid change, every other year, to update your software on your computer. And you see how rapid it is. I mean, before, how many of you all have only had just one cell phone? Because you see, they almost make them where they're 2 years down the road is obsolete. They've got something that's bigger and faster and with more bells and whistles on it that's coming out. Technology keeps on changing. Almost every 2 years, you got to get a new computer, a new telephone, and they're just driving us because they got something new, and they create the demand for it and make us lose our minds. And it's because we're on a seascape of where things are changing. It's not just the same stable environment. Years ago, the goal was to get a good job and stay there and retire from there after maybe 25, 30, 40 years of labor, get a nice gold watch and a pat on the back. But now, no, that's not the goal. They just want to have you for 5 to 7 years, drain the best creativity of your life, fire you, hire somebody half your age, and then, then they'll start that whole process over again. They want it fresh, new. It's a changing season. So the whole game has changed. And remember now, at every different stage of life, it introduces us to major change. And then here's what we experience in every different place. We experience, number one, new people. Every time that you come into major change, you will experience new people. You have a change, you are going to meet new people. You will always meet new people. You know why? Because God's answer to every problem is always a person. It's always a person. Now, consequently, the problem is generally always a person. The problem is the wrong person in the wrong time doing the wrong thing. And then God's answer is the right person in the right place at the right time doing the right thing. God's answer to every problem is always a person. When you go through major shifts in your life, God will bring a new person into your life, sometimes new persons. But you've got to be introduced to new persons because they have to become your tour guide for the next level. So you got to meet people who are on a level that you've never been at before. Every time that you have a shift in life, always look for there to be new people. Number two, look for new problems or new pains to come into your life. With all growth come problems. Growth has to be financed. You have to finance growth. Every time our business grew, we had to get a loan to buy a new building. You have to finance growth. You have to finance growth. Anybody who has outgrown their clothes, you have to buy new clothes, don't you? So that's why there are women who have several different sizes in their closet, because they are believing God that they'll be able to get back, because they paid too much money for those clothes and they're going to lose the weight and get back into. You have to finance growth. When you grow to be a certain size, you're going to have to get something bigger. You have to get stronger things to bind you. Ladies, you know what I'm talking about. I won't go there. I won't go there. Number three, when you deal with change, it brings you to new places. It brings you to places. May I see the hands of those of you who were not born in Atlanta, Georgia? Look around. Look around. Now, I'm a native. I'm at home. This has always been home for me. But look at everybody else, the vast, overwhelming majority of folks who have changed their place because of shifts and changes. Isn't it amazing how change brings us to new people? We find new problems. We're introduced to new places, new places. Number four, you get new perspectives. New perspectives. Your outlook determines your outcome. And if you don't get a new perspective, you will act with old perspective, and that will also cause you to have so you have a new perspective to operate on a new level in life. You've got to have new perspectives. All change brings us to a new perspective. When your children reach a certain age, you have a new perspective. You can't be the same, when you are 10 years old as you were when you were 3. You have a new perspective. You have a new perspective. Remember that with every stage of life, it brings us into new perspectives. A 10-year-old does not think the way that a newborn thinks. A 20-year-old doesn't think the same way that a 10-year-old thinks. They have new perspective because they've grown to a level. 30-year-olds, their values begin to change. You hit around 30. The values begin to change. You get to be 40, your perspectives will change. You get in your 50s, I guarantee you, your perspectives about life, about meaning, about how you use your time and your energy, anybody know what I'm talking about, will begin to change. I mean, I don't care what it does in your tender teens, your teachable 20s, your tireless 30s, your forcible 40s, your fearful 50s, your 60s, your settled 70s, your aching 80s, your nebulous 90s, or your prodigious 100s. Every age, it will bring you to a different perspective. I've had the wonderful joy of sometimes talking with octogenarians. These are folks in the 80s that have lived life. They have a different perspective of life. They honestly do. You ought to spend some time sometimes with some real octogenarians. I mean, the ones who are still in their right mind, have their, the mental faculties. Really. Because they can tell you some things about life about really important, because you'll spend half of your life chasing stuff that doesn't mean a hill of beans. And they've been asked the questions. I mean, if you had to do it all over again, what would you do more? And most of the time people would say, I'd laugh more. I'd spend more time with my family. I'd do the things that I was really more passionate about, stuff to just keep food on the table. It's interesting that how their perspective changes. What a real perspective. That brings us to number 5. New priorities. Change, your priorities are going to change. I mean, we spend our health trying to gain our wealth, and our wealth trying to regain our health. You get older, you get old enough, and money is not the primary thing. Let me just tell you this. You get old enough, you're not even concerned about being around smart people. You want to be around kind people. nice to you, how to treat you. You know, because you get in a nursing home, these, you know, they will beat you and leave sores on you. And then tell somebody that you failed. No. You want to be around kind people. You really do. You want to be, as you get older, kindness is what really matters. You don't care that they got a degree. Some of the smart people will be all bent out of shape and bitter over life and life experience. You want to find kind people. This is so interesting. And not only do you have new priorities, new passions. Every different stage of life brings us to different passions. There are some things that you will grow into that you become many years ago. You grow into new passions. You begin to develop a love for different things that you didn't have when you were much younger. It's amazing how life brings and introduces us to new passions. People who never go anyplace, they don't really know what they like. They've learned to like what they know. So you get exposed to some stuff. Then passions change. Your passions will change. Number 7, change brings you into new preparations. You have to prepare on a different level. The will to win without the will to prepare means absolutely nothing. If you want to win in life but you don't have the will to prepare, you're just fooling yourself. So preparation on every different level, it demands a different level of preparation. Number 8, change brings into your life new possibilities. Things that are in the realm of just what can be. And number 9, you'll find that it ultimately leads you to new provisions. They bring you into a greater degree of provision. You don't want to hustle backwards where you have less provision. When you're moving in the right kind of change, you'll end up having greater provisions. If your perspective is greater, if your vision is greater, provision comes for vision. It comes for vision. So you make sure that you have a sustainable vision. And remember now, you've got to really pursue some things, because if you want something that you've never had, you've got to do something that you've never done, because if you keep on doing what you've always done, you'll keep on getting what you've always gotten. And so the key is that this thing requires vision, and vision is a picture of the future, how things can be and should be. That's what vision is all about. This is a picture of the future, how things can be and should be. You ought to have a picture of how things can be and should be. You must decide where you would rather be. That's what vision is about. Vision brings discipline in your life. People, if they don't have a vision where they're working on something that is meaningful, that is productive in their life, their lives tend toward dereliction. But you have to have a vision that you are working on. It brings discipline. Remember the scripture that talks about where there is no vision, the people perish? Another version says where there is no vision, the people cast off restraint. They are undisciplined. They are wild because they have no discipline. No vision. I love what Zig Ziglar says. He says that you were born to win, but to be a winner, you must plan to win, prepare to win, and expect to win. And you do. Winning is never an accident. It is never an accident. You have to plan for it. Now, you don't have to feel as things change in your life that everything has to change. Not everything has to change. I want to encourage you, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Jesus taught us a wonderful principle. In Matthew chapter 13, verse 52, Jesus said, "Therefore every scribe instructed concerning the kingdom of heaven is like a householder who brings out of his treasure things new and old." Say new and old. Did you know that there is such a thing as old treasure? It would be foolish to throw away new treasure just because, throw away old treasure just because you got new treasure. You know, there are some very wealthy people in the country, and some of those very wealthy people, it's what you call old money. Now, I know E.F. Hutton talked about getting his money the old-fashioned way he earned it, but some people got it the old-fashioned way. They inherited it. They just inherited it. Now, it would be foolish to inherit money, a lot of money, and then get a job at 7-Eleven and throw away all of your inherited money, wouldn't it? Wouldn't that be ludicrous? So you don't throw away old treasure just because you get new treasure. Jesus taught in Matthew 13:52 that the householder brings out of his treasure things new and old. You never throw away old treasure. Now, I didn't say junk. I said old treasure. Treasure means that it must be something of extreme value. It's got to have value to it. There's some, and I don't just mean sentimental value. It needs to have value to the world, because there are certain things that you hold on to, and it only means something to you. And when you're gone, your children are not going to give a hoot about it. So you want the thing to have value to the world. It needs to be of value to somebody other than you. Now, I'm not saying that rid of love letters and special little sentimental things. You can keep that, but I'm telling you, your children are going to trash it. Now, unless you attach a piece of money onto the back of it. And then what's going to happen? They're going to rip the money off and throw you in the trash. They only keep what they deem as valuable. Keep what they deem as valuable. So we've got to learn how to creatively incorporate into our future old and the new. Old and the new. I get nervous if I went around something and there are no middle-aged or older folks in it. I don't want just a church full of young folks. I love young people. I love young people. I want young people to come to church. They need to be in. But then we need elders in the church who have the wisdom to be able to give perspective to young people. And see, and the elders need the young folks because they've got the energy. They've got the strength. And so folks need younger folks' strength. We need the strength of their backs and the swiftness of their feet. And they need the steadiness of our hearts, the wisdom of our minds. And it really concerns me that we get old too fast and wise too late.
Thank you for watching Power for Living with Bishop Dale C. Bronner. Until next time, God bless you.